Many people are being called to a journey of inner transformation, and you may be one of these people. Or you may be working with people who are experiencing that deep inner call to really radically shift the way that they experience themselves and the way that they experience life. But here's the thing, transformation requires a kind of commitment of the whole self, not just a dabbling, not just dipping your toes in. So the question is, are you or the people you're working with really ready for this radical revolution of your sense of self and your purpose and place in this world? Are you ready to embark on the transformational journey? So in this video, I want to talk about some of those signs and signals that say, yes, I'm ready, my clients are ready, this is what we're ready to experience together. Getting a sense of your readiness, or again, if you're working with people in a transformational space, their readiness for this transformational journey is a big part of it, because that allows you to position yourself to optimize the experience or to support the experience and its inherent dynamics. So I want to talk about 4 clear signs that you or someone you're working with is really ready to embark on this radical journey of self-transformation. And the first sign is a sense of disorientation within their life, a sense that the ways that have been working simply no longer seem to work. And I'm talking about ways of behavior, attitudes, emotions, responses to things, thought patterns, all of that kind of coming together forms a way of thinking that has likely dominated our life. And suddenly there's a sense that maybe, just maybe, there's something more to who we are, something more to life. And that kind of creates a little bit of a crack within that solid world of what I call the known world, that which I have learned and know to be true about myself and the world. And there's a crack that forms in that. And in that crack begins to arise, as I said, that sense that there's more to life, to myself, to reality than perhaps I've ever known. But what that is not clear. So there's this sense of disorientation, just this feeling like, man, the things that I've been doing, things I've been thinking, the way I've been behaving, it's just not working anymore. Something altogether different is ready to come forth in me. So again, just listening for that sense of disorientation is a clear sign that somebody is potentially ready for this. And sometimes they're asking themselves quite big questions like, what the heck am I doing with my life? That's a really big question. Or, is there a purpose for my life? Like, what is the meaning of my existence? Like, these are big questions, and there are not always easy answers, straightforward answers, though people will try to find them. And so this sign, this signal of disorientation, being a little bit adrift, lost in life, unsure about what's transpiring within the self and what's next for the self, is one of the most important signals to be paying attention to. The second sign is a kind of insistence on living into your values. And this is a big one, because this points to a desire to be in greater integrity within yourself, where what you say is what you do, kind of thing. That there's less of a gap between what you believe about life and what you say to be true about yourself or life and the way that you show up in the world, that there's less of a gap between those two. You're becoming more aligned within yourself. And so that desire to articulate your values, even to get clear on them, because you have to understand that values are taught to us by our families, by our societies, by our cultures. They're ingrained in us from a very young age. Something, for example, like be productive or don't be lazy. Those kind of values are instilled in us. What it means to be successful, values that are instilled. So we take those values in and we hold them to be true, but we've never really actually sat down and said, is this value, the way it was taught to me, really true for me? And when we go through that examination of our value set, we may find that we say yes to certain values, like, oh yes, I do still agree that being productive in life is a good thing to hold, or that family still matters. That's a good value to hold, and then we choose to retain the values. But there are going to be times when we decide that certain values that we've been taught and the beliefs around those values, for example, let's say you were raised in a religion and certain values about what it means to be a good religious person have been instilled into you, and you've realized, maybe that's just not the way for me in my life. You may choose to reject the value or shape it to something that is more real and true for you. And that means that you become aligned with your value sets. And this is another real clear signal of the journey for transformation, is again that lack of a desire to be out of alignment with what is true and real for you, and to live in greater integrity than perhaps you've ever lived before. A third signal to pay attention to is a desire for more personal time in reflection, more quiet time alone. What is really going on with this signal? Well, this journey of transformation calls us into a greater depth of self-knowing. And it, in a sense, prompts us to seek out more spaces and opportunities for contemplation, for self-reflection, for dialogue with others about some of these big existential questions that we're encountering. Questions like I mentioned before, like, what is my purpose in this world? Or is there more to life than what I have been taught there is to life? Or what really are my values and how do I live into those? Those big existential questions require time for contemplation. But what makes this a bit fearful for people is that they start to think, well, I need to withdraw from the relationships that have long mattered to me. And as I withdraw, there might be a sense that I lose something of value. There's a loss of relationship happening there. So they hesitate to pull back and give themselves the time that they need for reflection and contemplation, just to be alone with themselves and experience their inner world as it is. But again, this is a really key signal of transformation that you can be listening for in those that you're working with. Because one of the things, or again for yourself, because one of the things is that we have to normalize this as part of the journey of transformation. These are some of the early signals that people are readying for quite an extraordinary journey. And if we normalize it and say, well, it's quite okay for you to be experiencing a sense or a desire to be around other people as much as you were before, less of a desire, to be more alone, to find time for regeneration, for reflection, contemplation, for just doing things that are really meaningful that you love, that's a wonderful signal. It's not a signal that something's wrong. It's a signal that something is very, very right, though it may feel a little bit dysfunctional at the beginning. And the fourth sign that you can give thought to as well is that you're becoming more cognizant of your emotional states. And you could just say you're becoming more emotionally aware. Your EQ, your emotional quotient, is increasing. And what happens here on the transformational journey is because we start to spend more time inner space, we begin to see just all of the emotions that are at play a little more clearly. We tend to become a little more detached from our emotional bodies, and we even begin to see them as not who I am. Whereas in the past, we may have been so embroiled in our emotional state, so caught up in the anger, or the worry, or the hate, or the love, whatever it may be. We're so caught up in it that we don't even really see it as something that is just passing through us as an emotional experience. So as we start to go on this journey, we become very aware, hey, this is how I'm feeling in the moment. This is why I just yelled at that person or was short with that person, is because at an emotional level, I feel irritation today. Oh my goodness, there's irritation is alive in me, or annoyance is alive in me. I wasn't even really aware of it. And so I just snapped, I just shouted, I just acted out, I just reacted to something somebody said without even really noticing what gave rise to that reaction. But now that I sit back and I contemplate, okay, what was going on there? And I see it, there's that emotion we call irritation, or my old friend, impatience, was showing up again. And there's me living out a pattern of behavior that has long been there when I am kind of spurred by these undercurrents of emotion. So becoming aware of our emotions and noticing the effect that they have on our life, the impact that they have on our life, is another big sign that someone is ready for this journey of transformation into themselves. So those are the four signs, and they're worth sitting with and just noticing again within yourself and in those that you're working with, if you're doing transformational work, transformational coaching, whatever it may be, because we want, as I said, to normalize these experiences for people so that they can lean into the journey of transformation rather than sit back and resist or fear what lies ahead. So resistance and fear are also a kind of hallmark of the onset of a transformational journey. And it's very natural for us to fear or be concerned about this unknown world that lies ahead, because in one sense, we're being asked to leave this world that we know. It's a world we've kind of been raised in, to believe is true and real. There's not much beyond what we've been taught to believe about ourselves and life. And here transformation is creating that little crack in our minds and saying, hey, there may just be something more. Are you ready to go? So coming back to our hero's journey, if you recall great hero's journeys like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, the hero always balks. They always hesitate at that moment thinking, do I really want to leave the comforts of my shire? Do I really want to leave the comforts of the known world, my home, and embark on this adventure, which could take me to some very risky places? So it's natural for us then to hesitate and to feel perhaps some resistance to going on that, because there's a sense of, what will I lose if I say yes? And the reality is, you will lose things. And the kinds of things you will lose are the exact kinds of things that your ego loves to keep. Things like a sense of control. You're going to lose control. Wow, that's a scary thought for a lot of people. What if I lose control? But you will, in a sense, because you're starting to turn your life over to something greater than what you have understood life to be about. And yet you don't know what that really is. So there's a sense of loss of control. Another big one is a loss of identity. The person that I've known myself to be, and the person that everyone else, like they know me to be, I'm going to lose that. And if I lose my sense of who I am, and I don't yet know who I am, what I'm becoming in that sense, then is it safe for me to embark? Is it safe for me to lean in? So that sense of loss of identity is very real, because on one hand, it's true. You will lose yourself, but you're losing let's just call it a half-baked version of yourself, so that you can enter into a journey that takes you into the truest part of yourself. And that's where the really good stuff of life begins to emerge. But we have to be aware that this resistance and the fear of the unknown is going to come up in people. They're going to be concerned about what it means. So this is one of the things that you can look at in yourself too, is if you're noticing some of that resistance coming up, some of that fear about the unknown and what will this mean and what will I lose? Just spend a bit of time contemplating how much it may mean to you, because it's very much not necessarily an act of the soul that is causing this hesitation. The soul is ready to grow and expand and to take you, if you will, look at it that way, into new vistas of personal experience and possibility. That there's a life beyond what you may have ever understood as possible, an extraordinary way of living in this world. So that's all going to be happening. But you have to be very contemplative of this recognition that your soul wants to take you somewhere and your ego wants to hold you where you are. Your ego wants today to look like yesterday, for nothing to really change at a fundamental level, because that's where it's in control. That's where it's the driver of your life and your life experience, versus the soul-led life, which is a very different way of engaging in life, but it is really the one that we're called to when we sense, okay, there's something more to who I am than perhaps I've ever known before. So just recognize these signals, that there's a bit of tension in there. Again, wonderful to hear it, because it means that something is transpiring in you and the people you're working with that is going to, if they say yes, take them into extraordinary places. There's a big question then around what we may be needing to let go of to really support our journey of transformation, and what we may need to embrace or welcome to most enable or support this magnificent journey. So let's talk first a little bit about what needs to be let go of. And I've spoken to these already, because these are the mechanisms that the ego will throw in your path to thwart any movement down that path. So the first one is certainty. Like certainty, this idea that the known world is known for that reason. You know how to act within it. You likely know how to survive within it, and you may even be knowing how to thrive within it. It's the known world. But if you want to embark on this journey, you have to be willing to let go of the need to know, the need for certainty, the need to see all that's going to transpire in your life ahead. Some people just play life very conservatively that way. They've been taught to play it safe, and the steps are laid out and they take those steps, and it doesn't mean that they have a bad life. It doesn't mean that at all. There's nothing in this universe that says you must go down this pathway. You are free to experience your life in any way that you wish. But if you do want to embark on this, if you really want to experience the fullness of your nature, you have to be willing to let go of the known world, the comforts of the known world, which includes, again, behaviors, attitudes, even environments that you're in. You have to be willing to let it go. It doesn't mean that you will lose it in 100% of the way. It doesn't mean you'll lose your home and your car. It's not that kind of thing. But the willingness to let go of the need for certainty, to be able to see every step into the future, into the next 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, kind of laid out for you. You have to let go of that, because if anything, this journey of transformation is an unknown, open-ended, non-linear journey of self-discovery. So related to that then is you need to be willing to let go of a sense of comfort, just being comfortable in life, because this journey calls you into great discomfort in so many different ways. The idea of the unknown for many people, just to say yes to something that is not clear. It's like a dark tunnel with no light in the end. And there's no really many guides that are showing me how to navigate that tunnel. So that doesn't feel comfortable, but my shire does, my home does, the world that I know does. I know how people react. I know how people will treat me. I know what I'm supposed to do, my responsibilities, how I need to show up to survive, to get by, to thrive. I know all of that. And here we're talking about saying yes to something that's a radical restructuring of my sense of self and my purpose and place. And all of that is up for grabs now. Is this going to make it through the journey with me? I don't know. So some people just don't want to risk anything, and that's perfectly okay. But again, it's not that you will lose, but you have to be willing to let go of the need for comfort so that you can become comfortable with discomfort, to become more at ease in the discomfort of transformation, because it's asking you to look at the most shadowy parts of yourself and to do deep work on that so that you can emerge free of this baggage, this weight of life that really is not reflective of who you are in essence. And that is uncomfortable work. It's uncomfortable work. So being okay with that is one of the great learnings of transformation, to be comfortable in the discomfort. So those are just two pieces right there of what we need to really focus on letting go of: the need for certainty and the need for comfort. What we do need to welcome, though, and this is a big one, it's huge. We need to welcome trust. That's a hard one. Can I trust in the unknown? Just to sit with that question, do I trust the unknown? Most people would say, no, not really. Okay, do you trust the universe? Oh, many people will say, yes, I trust the universe. I had one person say to me, I trust the universe, but lately it hasn't been doing its job. I found that riotously funny, because if you trust, you're all in. Otherwise, there's just doubt within it. So there's a question of, what does it take to welcome trust? To live more trustingly in life, in yourself, in others, in processes that seem quite mysterious, because if anything, this journey of transformation is a mysterious process. It is non-linear. We don't know really where it's going to take us, other than when someone like myself sits here who's been through the journey and they say, you know what? There's light at the end of that tunnel. And I can show you how to navigate the tunnel with greater ease and greater joy. And one of the ways to do that is to begin to trust in the mystery and the magic of this process, to cultivate trust in yourself, that when you listen to those deep inner calls to be about your business, to be about self-discovery, to be about reshaping your life, when you hear that inner call and you follow that, you follow your heart in those ways, life begins to shape itself to that intention you have to grow. And it begins to bring you circumstances and people, a kind of curriculum, so that you can grow further in self-discovery and self-knowing. And sometimes those lessons that life brings you in that curriculum, you will decide you don't like. Okay, that's a big one, isn't it? I don't like that lesson. I don't like it to be like this. That is hard. That's uncomfortable. That's not what I signed up for. And yet it is, because that's what this journey is. So as we cultivate trust that all things are transpiring for our highest and greatest good, because we've made that inner commitment to this journey, life in a sense begins to conspire to shower us with blessings. And those blessings show up in all guises. In all guises. Sometimes they show up painful ways, uncomfortable ways, and other times in greater joyful ways, and we say happier or more easeful ways. But that ability to start to trust. And every time, here's the thing, every time you think you've made progress in trust, life will absolutely throw you a curveball just to make sure. It'll kind of poke you and say, oh yeah, you think you're living in trust? You think you got this mastered, do you? And it will poke you. And then you'll notice, oh, maybe I'm not living as trustingly as I could. So the cultivation of trust in the face of the discomforts of this journey is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. And as I said, it's not something that's an on-off switch, like a trust or don't trust. Trust is a kind of continuum. And as you go down this journey, you will be repeatedly invited to increase your levels of trust so they become more expansive. And I can honestly say where you'll end up, that light at the end of the tunnel, is that you start to notice yourself living in these very expansive states of trust of all things. Things that the world deems horrific as much as the world deems excellent. You begin to trust more and more in the mechanism of life, because that is the pathway to self-knowing, is to embody trust. So just sitting with those kind of different aspects or different ways that you can shift your inner reality, your mindset, to really support yourself, to support others on this journey, it's a big part of it. And if you do enjoy this video, do have a look at some of the other videos that we've put together, because if anything, shining light on this mysterious and magical journey of transformation is my work. This is what I am doing in this world, because more and more people are embarking on this journey. More and more people are awakening and hearing that call. And we want to be able to facilitate the movement through that hesitation and that fear so that they can lean in. And again, to normalize the behavior that they are experiencing, because it means that there is a readiness for a journey that takes you into extraordinary places and can really bring about a life experience that is a whole different paradigm from what you may have ever known or experienced before. Thanks for watching.